Hello and welcome to another video from Flash Jazz Cat. Now I know what you're thinking, why on earth has he got an Amiga 500 on the desk in front of him? Normally he messes around with Ataris to the exclusion of pretty much everything else. Well, that's true. But I thought I would do something a little bit different. But before we go any further, it is of course time for a word from our sponsor, PCBWay. Now PCBWay are experts in PCB prototyping and assembly, and they also offer additional services such as 3D printing and CNC machining. And since we're working on Amiga motherboards this week, I wanted to have a look and see what they had on offer in their community section. And you can see there's a project here which is actually a complete replacement Commodore Amiga 500 Plus motherboard, and you can order that on the PCBWay website. And another one here is an IDE 68K 68000 socket IDE board for the Amiga 500. So that's just two of the projects that you can find over at the community area of the PCBWay website. And don't forget, of course, that as ever, if you click the affiliate link below the video, you can get a $5 discount from your first order. So visit PCBWay today. Now back to the video. Because a lot of the jobs I'm doing at the moment seem to be covering the same old ground pretty much. And the things that I want to make videos about, new equipment, I don't have enough information or this, that and the other to actually do a good job of it. So I'm at a little bit of a crossroads at the moment, and I wanted to get some material out there. So I thought I would pull the Amiga off the shelf, and actually what prompted me to do this was a video that Adrian of Adrian's Digital Basement made just the other day when he was looking at an Amiga 500. I won't spoil that video for you, by the way. I won't tell you what happened in it. But I enjoyed watching that, and I enjoyed watching his troubleshooting procedure. This reminded me that I have a couple of Amiga 500s, and this is one of them. Now, it's in the camera does flatter it a bit. This particular overhead view does flatter the cosmetic condition a bit, but it is in nice condition. The keyboard actually does need a retro bright again, but the case is pretty much spot on. I think the keys did look a lot lighter than this one. I did retro bright them about 5 years ago or something, the last time I did it. And the case is really lovely. The badge is in excellent nick. Now, a bit of background knowledge. I bought these machines about 12 to 15, 14 years ago, and I actually bought them at the flea market in South Shields here, where I live. And that was back in the days when you could actually buy retro computers on a market stall for, I think I paid about £10, £5, and I got a couple of them, and actually had a third machine that a friend of mine gave me a few years ago. It's quite embarrassing that I know that at some point I had 3 Amiga 500s and I can only find 2 of them. But nevertheless, this one, about 12 years ago I think, I upgraded it with 1 megabyte of chip RAM, which actually Ken Jones, who you'll know as Metal Guy, talked me through that. And I had the sidecar, the original, I think it was an A590 sidecar hard disk to plug into the parallel port at the side here, but the SCSI drive mechanism in there was shot. And I kind of wanted to work on it, but I mean back then I didn't really have the experience, and I talked to Ken about it, and ended up selling that. And what I got instead was a compact flash IDE adapter, which serves as the hard disk in this machine. But I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to take the cover off and show you what I did to this machine anyway. So let's take the top cover off. It's a little bit fiddly and I don't want to damage the damn thing. There we go. Right, cover off. Put that down there. There we go. Right. I've lifted the keyboard up a little bit here. In fact, I'll take the keyboard off. Why don't I unplug the whole thing? That would be a good idea. Right. I'll unplug the keyboard. Put the keyboard to one side. and we can have a look at the board. So the first thing you'll notice here is this compact flash adapter. It's still got the compact flash card in it I put in there about 10 years ago, which has got Workbench boot disk on it. And that is connected to this IDE adapter board, which goes under the CPU here. Now I fitted this about 2010, 2012, something like that, as far as I can remember. I actually ordered it from a place in Scandinavia. I can't even remember the name of the fella. It'll be in the email somewhere. I think it was Norway, and the only thing you could actually get at the time was something like this. So that's what I ordered anyway. And it was dead easy to fit. It just needs a couple of extra lines taken from the near the parallel bus here. So that takes care of the hard disk, and it works great. It's had a ROM upgrade. So this is version 4.6. Kickstart ROM version 40.63, something like that anyway. And this of course is the 1 megabyte chip RAM upgrade that Metal Guy told me how to do, and that works very well as well. He said that was better than using the trapdoor, because I think it's fast RAM that goes on here, isn't it? Yeah, this is chip RAM. I was going to buy the trapdoor expansion board as well, but I never got around to that. Now, one of the other interesting things about this board, of course, is this thing here. Now, this is not the original RTC battery, but the original battery, and this is again way back about 12 years ago, it had leaked, and you can probably see just down there, if I get a pointing device, that might be a good idea. You can see down here there's some discoloration on the board. It did leak. It's left a little bit of, actually at the time it left a lot of corrosion, but the thing was, it wasn't too bad and it still did work. So all I had to do was replace the battery, but of course I bought a like-for-like replacement. This is basically the same as the old battery that was in there that did leak anyway, and this will again in time leak. So what I've done about 5 years ago, when I was having a look at these two Amigas, and I'll show you the other one in a minute, is I bought a coin cell adapter which has exactly the same pinout as this one. So I'm going to take this off anyway as soon as I can and replace it with that 3.3 volt CR2032 I think it is coin cell RTC battery adapter, because even after I removed that battery, if we have a look over here. So the problem I had was that even after I'd removed that leaky battery and put that replacement one in, so there was nothing leaking, there was no source of corrosion or anything. The corrosion that was there, or the gases or the acid or whatever it was, a kind of oxidization that was going on, continued to work on these contacts here. So it was down this area of the board, way away from the RTC battery itself, that was continuing to suffer and continuing to corrode. So what I ended up doing is I tinned those edge connector pads there, and it does look a little bit better than it did. I didn't know at the time about fiberglass pens and stuff like this, so this work was done about 5 or 6 years ago, just to try and stop it from corroding any more, because it was all pitted. The gold contacts were all pitted and the green bits on them and stuff, so I cleaned it and then I tinned it all. And it does seem to have done the trick anyway, because it hasn't continued to corrode basically. So I'm pleased to say that, looking at the board, you know, some years after the event. Another problem I can see here potentially, this, I don't know, it's hard to tell. Oh, maybe that isn't a leaking cap. I thought that cap looked like it was leaking at first, but I'm not too sure now because I've just scraped that and it's come off. It would probably be worth replacing these electrolytic caps on this board, just because it has been subject to corrosion in the past, and I did notice some brown gunk there, so let's assume worst case scenario it has leaked a little bit. And the board could probably do with a good clean now actually. It's looking a bit dirty since it's been sitting on the shelf for a long time, but the machine does work. This one does work, and none of the sockets had corroded or anything like that because of that battery. It was just strange that all the corrosion seemed to be around the RTC battery at the top of the board and around here. For some reason it was very strange, it was so far removed from the site of the RTC battery, but there it is. So this machine works, and it's been sitting on the shelf for 5 years. It still works now. So I'm going to replace those caps later date, and replace that RTC battery with a much safer coin cell equivalent. So this is this machine now, but I've got a second one, and I'm going to show you what the problem is with that one. Right, so this is the top case off the other machine, and big problem here. I don't know how this happened actually. It wasn't, because this case has been retrobrighted as well, but I did mask off the badge, and what I'm assuming happened is when I've masked the badge off, and when I took the masking tape back off, it took some of the paint with it off the badge, which is very unfortunate, and it really does kind of spoil the look of the badge a bit. But on the other, but apart from that, I mean, it's not bad. It's not terribly badly discoloured. So that's the top case of this other machine. And the keyboard, likewise, the keyboard's very, very yellow on this one, particularly the other one, so that's desperately in need of a good retrobright. And all I do with these keyboards is I don't take the individual keycaps off. I know other people do. I never really saw the point of that. And they put them in bags of peroxide and stuff, and they end up with a collection of keys that come out, and they're very unevenly treated by the retrobright process. What I find works anyway is that I take the whole back plate off, so all the electronics of the keyboard come out, and any membranes and, you know, rubber domes or whatever, however the keyboard's constructed. And then I just slop the peroxide over the top of the frame with the keys on it. And that's the way I've always done it with all keyboards that are, you know, practical for being treated in that way at least. And what you end up with is a very, very even treatment. You're not going to get one key that's yellow here and another one that was facing a different way in the bag or whatever. It all looks very even. So however well it works, it may not work too well, or it may work very well, and they may all come out extra white, or they may be a bit of a yellow hue, but it'll be consistent because the keys have been subject to the UV light in a very consistent fashion. So that's what I'll be doing with this keyboard at some point later on. I mean, if we compare it with the other keyboard, which I would say it does need another treatment. I mean, it really is night and day. This keyboard isn't actually too bad at all. But it does look yellower in real life than it does on the camera. So that's the case and the keyboard of the other machine. Now we have the motherboard. Now this motherboard really, really suffered at the hands of an RTC battery leak. And I'll show you exactly what I had to do to it. So when I noticed a few years ago, as I say, when I was looking at the motherboard of, you know, my working 500, and I looked at the state of the bus connector here. Right, so if you have a look at the contacts on this board, which is the other board that's never worked, you can see the gold plate is absolutely intact, fantastic. So when the battery leaked on this board, this didn't get tarnished or affected in any way. I'll show you the other side as well. Absolutely untouched, no problem at all. But on this board, for some unknown reason, what got really, really, really damaged was the polar socket, the Gary socket, and the CPU socket. The contacts on those large dual wipe sockets were completely wrecked. They had all the green residue on them. They looked corroded. They looked absolutely terrible. So what I did is I took them off and binned them. I should have kept them so you could see them, but anyway, the CIA sockets seemed to be okay. Obviously I had a close look at the board. I'm sure there's a cap here that's got a broken leg, this one here, so that cap's going to need replacing because the leg's broken there. The Fat Agnes socket is okay. I took the chip out, inspected it. But absolutely this machine did not work at all. It just boots to some yellow screen or something like that. It's terrible. And it was solely because, well, I'm assuming it was solely because of those the damage to those sockets. And we're still not necessarily out of the woods yet with this machine here, because if you can see along the side of these ICs, we've still got a little bit of green corrosion. Obviously this has all come from the side of the RTC battery as usual, which I've taken off and I haven't replaced because I didn't have another battery to put in it at the time. So I took that out. As far as I can tell, I hope the damage hasn't extended to actual damage of the traces on the board. You can always see green on these little capacitors here around the battery. It's always the same kind of area, but the strange thing is this one didn't damage the contacts on the bus connector. It's just in the immediate locale of the battery itself. It's just completely gone to town, corroding stuff. So I'll probably have a little bit more work to do here. I'll probably clean these up with some flux, extra solder, or I'll actually take them out. I don't know. I'll see what's necessary. What I would actually like to do is try to just get the machine to work first, and then we'll do the niceties of trying to clean it up and ensure it against any further corrosion in the future. And if I can get this board working nicely enough, I would actually consider swapping this motherboard with the other one, purely because of the edge connector is in much better condition. So I would do the chip RAM upgrade on this one, and swap the ROM and put this one in the other case. So this would be the better machine. I mean, this motherboard's much cleaner than the other one as well. It's in really nice shape, apart from all this corrosion that happened here. So what I want to do is put new sockets in here, put all the chips back in, see if I can get the thing to boot up, and if I can, we'll continue with some extra work to try and ensure the longevity of this motherboard, because I think it's a really nice one. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So I'll show you what I bought in the way of sockets a good few years ago now. Right, so these are the chips that I took out of the machine, and some of the sockets. There seem to be quite a lot of ICs actually, more than I think came. Oh no, that's right. So I took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ICs out of the machine. So the 7 ICs, two 60, what are they? 64 pin sockets. And I'm assuming this is maybe an 80, is the CPU 80 pin? I can't remember. I mean, even the CPU itself, if we have a look here, of course I can always swap the CPU because I've got STs lying around. That's not too bad. These ICs aren't too bad. You can just see where it's started to attack the legs of the chips here, but I think they're okay. I hope they are. Fortunately, of course, with having the other machine, which works, I can easily diagnose. I mean, that probably just needs a clean. Hopefully, they're not beyond saving. We'll find out, I guess. But of course, as I say, I can swap the ICs out of the other machine because it's an identical motherboard. So fingers crossed that's going to work. So I think what we'll do first, we'll put these sockets in. See how we get on. So of course I've done a visual inspection of the top side of the board here, to see if there are any obviously knackered traces, and there don't appear to be. So I'm just going to trust me luck here and just get straight into it and solder these things on. So I just tacked the 4 corner pins of the socket underneath, and I pushed it flat from the top side of the board. So on the top of the board we should hopefully have a completely flat socket, which we do. So now I can go ahead and do the other pins. I might actually do the middle pins first, actually push it down again because it's such a huge socket. I suppose you could get a bow in the middle of it. And the nice thing, of course, here is that I've never worked on an Amiga board before. That did push down again, that socket, so it still wasn't flat. It's so big. There we go, so it's flat now on the board. Yes, I've never worked on one of these Amiga boards with a decent iron like the iron I've got now. Of course, I've got the Hakko FX951, so it's going to be much easier to work on this board. There's a lot of thermal mass when the iron is, of course, capable of delivering and managing heat delivery without too much trouble. But it is a completely different experience to working on a an 8-bit Atari motherboard. Much more copper here. Now if I wasn't recording this, I'd actually be doing this under a magnifier. So if you can see defects on these joins in the camera view, I won't see them until I inspect it later on, because my eyesight just is not what it used to be. I've got the glasses I've got at Specsavers now on, so things are pretty clear, but from this working distance where I've got my head out of the way of the camera, it's pretty difficult. So I'm just going to do the best I can from a distance here. The key thing is, anyway, to get the iron into that crux between the via and the leg of the socket or the component. You're trying to heat that and then apply the solder to the join. You're not heating up the solder directly. The solder, when I'm poking into this joint, it hits the leg of the socket, not the end of the iron, because the leg of the socket and the via are heated up to approaching the same temperature as the iron tip. So when I apply the solder, it's the via and the leg that melt the solder, and the solder therefore goes to those components and sticks. It doesn't go and try and stick to the iron, because we don't want solder on the iron, we want it on the component, on the joint. Okay, so that looks reasonably good. As I say, I'll go over it again later on. I just want it to be connected, basically. Now if you have a look at the underneath of this, I think that's the Fat Agnes socket. I should probably get into this with some vinegar or something. So I'm checking the underside of the board here. We've lost a little bit of the mask on here, on the underside of these other ICs. Doesn't look too bad. I'm going to give them a little bit of a clean first, just because I don't sort of trust them. And before I put these other sockets in, I think that would probably be a good idea. So we'll go over these with some IPA just to hopefully get rid of any crud that might interfere with the soldering job itself. It looks like I started to reflow these pins earlier on, years ago, and I just did 4 or 5 of them and then I stopped. I must have lost interest at the time. Right, okay, so potentially we're not far from completion here. I'm just going to check that again. I'm going to clean this as well. I'm going to really go to town cleaning this lot, because I've got a funny feeling I'm going to get trolled quite badly by any corrosion that's still hanging around here. I mean, I really don't know. I think the main reason that it didn't work before was just that all of the damage to the socket contacts, and there was a sufficient number. I mean, it only takes 1 pin not to be making contact, so I'm hoping that's all it was, because I really don't want to get into doing trace repair and stuff on this if I can possibly avoid it. I think I'll clean up these resistors while I'm about it. I don't really want to take them off, but just anything that's going to be in the way of the socket that's going to be difficult to get to later on, I think I'd rather try and sort it out now. Because when the socket's on, it's going to be hard to get to this stuff. So let's just do a little bit of dressing on here. Alright, that seems to be burning it away quite nicely actually. Yeah, that's quite a lot better. So let's clean away all that flux. And we should have some nicer looking resistors there. Yeah, so these resistors here that I've just touched up, with the iron look quite a lot better. That end one isn't too great. That's better. There we go. I think I should do these ones as well. Yeah, it looks like we might actually get away with it. So this is looking appreciably better with the sockets in place. I think what the next thing I should probably do is clean some of these ICs before I put them back in. Are there any other sockets that look like they've got problems? No, not severely. No, I think we should be okay. I want to get this green stuff off here. I've got a slightly misaligned leg as well here. Don't like the look of that at all. That's a bit better. Well, okay, so everything's back in. I think we're going to be looking at some replacement ICs here, because I really do think, a few of the legs on these chips are looking pretty ropey. Right, so all the chips are back in place. I'm not confident about this at all. We've got a broken capacitor which is on the clock circuit, so I don't think that's going to be a showstopper. I think what's going to stop this machine from working is some sort of trace damage that I haven't noticed or found yet, or one of the legs on one of these major ICs not being in good shape, because Paula and Gary have still got green bits on them, and I don't have any more spares, which is weird, because you would have think the third machine I would have taken the ICs off at the very least and kept them all. Maybe I did, but I don't know where they are. So here we go, let's have a look. We've got a green screen. Any signs of a boot? So we've got video output, and we've got a blink. Yeah, it came and went. So it's boot cycling. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'm going to swap the Gary and Denise out, because I'm not hopeful about them at all. I'm going to try swapping them with the other machine. Right, so I've replaced Paula and Gary with the ICs from the spare machine, so let's see if anything changed. And now I've got a white screen. I actually had the CIA chips in upside down. Oh god, I hope that hasn't killed them. I hope that doesn't kill CIA chips, putting them in the wrong way up. Ugh. So I've got a white screen now. Is that good? Surely I should be seeing the oh, please insert disk message now. What the hell, will go the whole hog. We'll swap the CIEs as well. Power again. Got a white screen again. So unfortunately it looks like things might be a bit more difficult than I thought here. I haven't started to measure anything with the scope yet. I haven't got that deeply into it, and of course I'm completely unfamiliar with the signals on this machine, on these motherboards. But I was very concerned about this area immediately to the left of the battery, which is of course the data path area, and I thought I'll investigate these traces by taking the actual ICs off, which I'm assuming are buffers. I don't know. 74LS 5244N, so I'll look them up. And I mean these two could actually have suffered as well, but particularly these ones, and obviously we've got severe corrosion of these traces. They don't look like they're necessarily gone, but the problem is that underneath the solder mask, these darker areas here, and you can see them around here as well, actually all over the place, that would suggest to me that looks like a sign of a potentially broken path underneath the mask. Where it's actually turned dark. I've scraped away a little bit of it on here just so I can actually see what's going on underneath, but this isn't going to be fun, I don't think. Obviously I'll ping it out with the multimeter. Initially I'll have to do every single pathway and just see if we get A to B connectivity. which isn't too much work in itself. That would be a useful thing to do. But I had such a fight getting these ICs off as well. It was because the solder was so badly corroded, and yeah, it's not looking too good, I have to say. So I think this will be a longer project. I'll ping these connections out anyway. I'll see if I can find anything that's broken, and if I do find anything that's broken here, I'll fix it. And then I'm going to put a couple of sockets on here. I think they're 20-pin sockets, so I've got some of them. That's no problem. We'll put some nice sockets on here. I need to verify if those ICs that I took off actually work as well. And then we'll really have to get serious, and I'll actually have to do some thinking, which I hate doing, and actually start to analyse the machine as it tries to boot. And it does seem like it gets so far and then it crashes. Well, I decided to persevere with this for another half an hour. I got the multimeter out and I pinged those traces under these 74LS244Ns. As I say, I'm assuming the buffers, but in editing I'll look it up online and I'll verify that. So I put a couple of precision sockets under here. The traces were fine. Every single pathway that was going underneath the chip was fine. But there was a couple of wires going, obviously taking a trace from one side of the board to the other. These ones at the back here, particularly, they were full of like dusty sort of crud. So I put a lot of flux on there and just filled those vias full of solder, and put the sockets in, straightened the legs up on these chips that I took out of the board, which were soldered directly to the board, of course. And I put them back in, so let's see if that makes any difference. I would have felt better if I'd actually found a problem and unambiguously fixed it with a patch wire or something, but so I can't really see this making any difference. Anyway, so let's turn it on and see what we get. So we've got the white screen again. It's flickered that time. I don't know what that's indicative of, but so it's just, oh! Wow! It works! Fantastic! Oh, what the hell happened there? So all I've done is put sockets underneath these two ICs. That's all I've done. So there was maybe one of the IC legs where it was soldered straight to the board. Maybe the solder had completely corroded through or something. So one of the legs wasn't making contact, perhaps. Or maybe it was those vias. Maybe it was filling those vias did the trick. I've blistered the board a little bit actually there. I've got this Atom 862D hot air station, and I was helping these chips out of the board, and the power of this station, I had the best station prior to this, so I was just helping the board out, and I never have this problem with the Atari boards or anything, and managed to just about delaminate that bit there. But never mind, it's okay, it's still fine. And it's my stuff anyway, so if I want to damage my stuff, I suppose I can. But yeah, that's incredible. I'm really, really surprised that that works. Absolutely brilliant. So I suppose, now bearing in mind, of course, while I was troubleshooting this, of course, swapped a lot of ICs from the other good working boards. So what I still need to do is put them back the way they were. And I need to fit that CR2032 battery adapter. If I can find it now, actually, I'll put it on. Right, so this is the little adapter. And that just sits in there like so. And that's going to look very, very nice indeed. So I think we can sit it down flush, like so. I might as well put that on now. And of course we'll trim the legs. And there we have it. One Amiga motherboard with no more leaky battery. So I hope you enjoyed that one. It was a bit of a diversion from the usual Atari subject matter. So yeah, I'm really glad I made this video now. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, and it turned out to be another fixed Amiga 500 motherboard, so what could be better than that? I might do a follow-up anyway. I thought this was going to be a miserable, laborious two-parter where I started to do trace repairs and stuff like that, but I need to run some diagnostics on this board before I can pronounce it absolutely fine, because we might have problems with the RTC, or there's problems with the CIA chips or some peripherals or something like that. So obviously I'm going to have to test the whole thing before I can pronounce it completely working, so maybe we could look at that in a future video. But for now, I'm absolutely delighted, over the moon, totally surprised that this board that's never ever worked since I had the machine, since I bought it about 15 years ago, it's been dead that whole time, and now it works again, so that's really, really great. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you appreciated seeing some different hardware covered to the norm. I know Amigas are really popular, and I like them, so if you want to see more Amiga stuff, do let me know. And thank you to the new patrons who've signed up since the last video. Your names will be on the screen as we speak. I have got a couple of interesting videos coming up which are actually customer returns, unfortunately. Really weird problems as well though. Very, very strange problems that nobody can figure out, so I can't wait until these things get back on the desk. Fortunately, in one case, the customer was going to send another project to do anyway, so we just had to stick the board in the box. But for now, anyway, I'm absolutely delighted to have a second working Amiga 500. Couldn't be better. And I'll leave it there for now, so I'll see you in the next video. So, bye-bye for now. And just a reminder that I'm currently selling a house by auction via the Pattinson's estate agent, and the auction has another 3 weeks to run, the first cycle, and you can get in touch with Pattinson's if you're in the UK or the northeast area and you want to invest in a property, or you're looking to get on the property ladder. The property does require a lot of work. It was neglected for a very long time. But the roof was replaced in the mid-1980s. It has an extremely long garden. It's well situated next to the metro station, the Simonside metro station, which will take you straight up to central Newcastle in the space of about half an hour. All the information is there on the website. If you want to go and have a look and you want to bid on that property, it would be very greatly appreciated indeed. And if you decide to do that, best of luck.